Welcome to the Dwarven Forge Build of the Month for March of 2021, and this is the Seacave of Secrets. It's a small cave complex attached to an abandoned sewer, accessible only by the ocean. This build is made up of 8 sets, and they're all available as a bundle on our web store with a bonus gift card, but only for the month of March. So, the story is, the beloved rabbit burner has been kidnapped! Oh no! But luckily, Gary Gygax has an underworld contact who's told him rabbit burner is being held on a keep overlooking the ocean. But there's a secret entrance accessible by an old sea cave. With that, Gary Gygax declares,
I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want. If you're looking for a ransom, I can tell you, I don't have any gold. But what I do have are a very particular set of skills, feats, and class features that make me a nightmare for people like you. I will look for you, I will find you, and I will crit you. 'Cause I'm Gary Gygax, yeah!
So let's see what happens when Gary Gygax goes all Liam Neeson in the Seacave of Secrets. So, before we get into the story, let's look at, we have a few extra pieces left. So, this build doesn't incorporate, we have these 3 extra pieces. We have these 3, but we're gonna use them later. And then we haven't put this guy out, but he's gonna show up too. So we'll put these off to the side for now and dive into the story. So, our friend Gary Gygax has learned from his underworld contact that rabbit burner is being held in a keep overlooking the ocean. But the contact in his old days as a smuggler used to use a sea cave that had an old drainage tunnel, an old sewer that would lead into the castle. So he gives Gygax directions. Gygax gets a boat. This boat isn't actually part of the build, but you can buy it on our website if you want. It's a cool modular boat. So he hops in the boat, determined, ready to go save his buddy, Rabbit Burner. He sails on over there. So maybe the journey, you could do some sort of nautical naughtiness. There could be some crazy challenges, whatnot. You can do whatever you want in there, but well, for the sake of this, we're gonna, he's already drunk. He's a sailor. So Gygax rolls up and he gets to the location. There's supposed to be a distinctive rock formation thing. He gets there, and where there should be a sea cave, there's nothing. It's just a solid stone wall. What is afoot? Can't figure it out. So at this point, you can let your players do like maybe a perception or investigation or maybe an arcana or something. But with one decent check, they deserve something is amiss. Right? Where the stone is meeting the water, it doesn't quite line up. It is an illusion. So if they're bold enough to just press forward or like throw a rock through it or whatever, move the way up and discover that there is an illusory wall concealing this cave. Which is odd because their context said, hey, there's nobody here. It's an abandoned cave. But it turns out it's not. Someone's moved in. So we have, this represents our ocean out here. We're not going to play in the ocean. We're in the cave here. So this is the seashore, the little entrance of our sea cave. And the most interesting and notable feature is this giant arcane column here, like pulsing with energy. Wom, wom, wom. So this thing is like, it's an illusion generator. It's creating this thing. It's what's creating the illusion that's hiding this cave. The players could mess with this if they want. They could do some arcana to kind of figure out what's going on. They could destroy it or sabotage it, which would bring down the illusion. But also, it will alert the villain, which we'll learn about later. Or they could just leave it alone and then it sort of covers their escape and whatnot. Maybe there's some other cool thing we could do with it. I don't know. Got any ideas? Okay, so once they come in, there's this big, open, cool cave, right? Wet cave everywhere. Drip, 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 sounds and whatnot. And over here is, you can see the entrance of an old sewer, an old drainage area. However, the second surprise awaits over here because instead of just being this empty, dusty, old sewer, this trough is full of some sort of green caustic liquid, right? Some crazy green acid. Like this is no good. This was not at all. Once again, this is not as advertised. It was just supposed to be an abandoned old thing, and we've got the second surprise. There are secrets in this cave. The second one is all sorts of acid. So maybe the players determine, if they want to go in, Rabbit Burner is not going to save himself. Maybe Gary's just going to like plunge into the acid. Oof, bad news. So this is highly caustic acid, right? It's going to just burn all sorts of damage right out of the gate, and even worse, it's really thick and viscous and sticky. In fact, it's a modified version of Sovereign Glue. It's like maybe it's Sovereign Goo, and you can only move 5 feet at a time through it. So an entire move only gets you 5 feet. It's so thick and so sticky. So you just have to like slowly wade through, trudge, and just have like absolutely lethal amounts of damage to make any sort of headway through here. So it's just absolutely gonna melt you endlessly if you try and punch through. And then maybe one of the players is feeling like frisky and they want to try some crazy parkour nonsense on their way through. Bad news. These walls, super slick, right? Not only is there sea foam and all the wetness from the ocean in there, but also the fumes from this are making everything slippery. So this whole wall is like terribly slick. So it would be like a double whammy of you'd need an acrobatics check to stay aloft and athletics because it's so strenuous to try and work it around. So it would just be like endless series of checks until you just fall into the acid. Like, moral of the story is you're probably not going to be able to traverse over this unless you have some sort of cool acid boat. And maybe you could take, I wonder what's going to stop the players from shoving their boat? No, it's too big. Good. We just saved there. All right, so while checking this area out, maybe your party, maybe Gary Gygax would note over here there seem to be some sort of supplies. So maybe he'll skirt this caustic acid pool, cursing this pool that's blocking him from saving Rabbit Burner, and come over here and discover there's supplies. We've got a barrel full of some acid, and a couple of jars, and some weird junk. So they can check this out. This is a great opportunity if your players have artisan tools like alchemy supplies or an herbalism kit. You could use that to give them an advantage on checking this stuff out and sort of poking around, figuring out what it is. And we're thinking there's probably 1 dose of Sovereign Glue in one of these bottles, a bunch of empty old Sovereign Glue bottles. This is some sort of weird green bubbly chemical, a bunch of reagents. It seems like this might be the stuff that's been getting poured in here, creating this weird, crazy Sovereign Goo. So perhaps there is another clue somewhere nearby of how to stop it. So not too much the players can do at this point other than search the rest of this cave for clues. They also may notice from here that there's this notable indentation at the far end of the wall. Probably not too much they can do with this either at this point. So Gary Gygax, representing your party, is going to come wandering over here and is faced with a choice. Do you go right or you go left? Let's go left because we framed that area up. So comes on over here, and there is a crazy hellfire furnace here, and there's a green concoction just like bubbling and fuming, and there's terrible like toxic cloud in here, right? It's just fumes are terrible. Constitution checks up the wazoo. Coughing, burning. Maybe it's lightly obscured, right? It's just like there's just a haze in this room. Right, so it's not a great place to go. Maybe if they're really astute, they would notice there's some supplies in the back. There's a little alembic on a table, but maybe not. So perhaps they will turn back and they'll head on over here. Deterred by the toxic fumes, maybe your party will come over here. So Gary Gygax rolls in here and he's like, "What is this? Looks like a hidden laboratory, right? There's a table covered with sort of weird samples and bottles and the like, and there's a notable grimoire in the middle." So of course, players are going to poke around. Maybe there's a potion. Maybe there's a potion of healing or some other fun miscellaneous potion if they poke around. But the book has a glyph of warding. So if they open it, it releases. Thinking maybe it's a lightning bolt, right? So the villain. We don't know who this villain is. The villain doesn't want to destroy all this stuff, but they do want to harm anybody that's trying to read their book. So I'm thinking maybe it's a lightning bolt in there. I don't know. Is there better? Put in the comments if there's a cooler 3rd level spell to put in the glyph of warding to ward off would-be intruders. Let's say they tear open the book, somehow soak the damage. Lightning, terrible. And inside they can sort of flip through the pages and get 3 important pieces of information. So whoever's got this sort of secret lab here, this is definitely an alchemy lab of sorts down here. They've got a couple of things going on. One, they've made this Sovereign Goo, right? It's a variation on Sovereign Glue. They have to boil out some stuff and add some original Sovereign Glue and make this thing. And they've been filling this trench with Sovereign Goo to stop anybody from getting in or out of their secret lab because they want to keep it protected. Number 2, they have a concoction that they've created that lets them travel through the Sovereign Goo without being impeded, without taking any damage, without being slowed down, which, that's exactly what the players need. And conveniently enough, there's a little recipe in there, but it references the alembic in the furnace chamber, which is just where we were next door. So they need to get the alembic from the furnace chamber, but otherwise they've got sort of everything they need here to brew up one of the concoctions so they can safely travel through the goo. And number 3, even more interesting, is there's some sort of Ensorcelment elixir that has been in the works. Details are kind of fuzzy, but there's notes of a success, and now trying to try the experiment. And of course, the only thing Gygax can think of is they're going to try it on Rabbit. I've got to get to Rabbit Burner. So you're going to have to charge on into this other room and find that alembic. So, all right, so he comes back. All right, so now got to get to this alembic to brew the concoction. So there's a couple options. They could just like sort of try and tough it out, right? Just hold your breath, run in there, take a bunch of con checks, grab this thing, and run back out. Or option 2, they could come in, they could try and shut this thing down. It'd probably take like a Arcana, or maybe you could do like a Thieves' Tools thing, right? Hotwire it and shut it down. Or Gary's drunk. Or they could just go the brute force route, right? All Gary can think about right now is like his Rabbit going, "Help me, Gary! I'm a captive! You must free me! Help me, Gary Gygax!" So he's like, no time to mess around. He's just gonna like roll in here and just start like flipping furniture, right? Just smashing this thing around. Just go brute force. They smash this thing till fire shuts down. If the players do that, it'll probably spill toxic stuff all over the place. But you know what? Gary Gygax doesn't care. He's got to rescue the rabbit. So they had to stop the fumes. You run in, you grab your alembic, and race on out. Woo, maybe slipping on the goo. All sorts of skill checks up the wazoo. So, armed with the alembic, party can come back in, and using the ingredients here, they can brew up the concoction they need to become immune to the sovereign goo. So brew, 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 rucka, rucka, rucka. Another fun chance for some skill checks if you want. Good use of your herbalism kit. And then we deposit this alembic here on the table. Poop. All right. Later, science class. He's out of here. So, concoction in hand. Our party, represented by Gary Gygax, strides out here, quaffs the concoction, and strides into the acid. So now he's immune to the effects. He's not taking damage, and he can move through it like it's just difficult terrain now. So more than just 5 feet at a time. But when he gets down here, something starts glowing on the wall over here. It's another glyph of warning, but it's a little slow, so he has a moment to back up, retreat out of the blast zone just in time. Because whoa, it's a banishment spell that's been holding this two-headed croc, an Ettingator. It's double hungry. It's been in there for a while. 2 heads that need feeding, and it's going to rush into attack. So it's going to lead to like a fun, cool combat. You got like a big area that you could fight in. But in this case, you know, Gary Gygax means business. He's got to save Rabbit Burner, so he's just going to run in there and just like start throat chopping. Both throats, right? Double throat chopping. Kind of get one of those crazy wrestling things and just suplex this thing. It'll be a great fight, but in the end, we know the party will win. Gary Gygax will gloat over his triumph for a moment, and then stride on in. I've got a rabbit to save. And he's going to head on in. Gary can head back in here, and now can investigate this back wall. And with a little bit of force, Gary Gygax has got a ton of force. It looks like this is actually bricked up. You can pop it open. The players can pop open the plug, revealing the chamber. They can go boop, boop, boop. They can pop in the chamber. And this is an old little cache that the smugglers used to use when they were in here. And indeed, there's a little bit of leftover treasure. Maybe some gems. Maybe there's some cool miscellaneous magic item. Or something you can hide. Some old dusty treasure in there. But no time for treasure. There's a rabbit to save. So Paris can stride down here, and at the end of this hallway, there's a ladder that leads up to a secret trap door in the base of the keep. Rabbit's waiting. Save me, Gary. I'm up here somewhere. Save me. Come on up. And that will take us to part 2. So this story will be continued in April's Build of the Month. The second half, Inside the Castle. So you have to tune in then. let's look at some of the techniques for putting this build together. So first of all, this whole center area is all done using negative space. During our building of the build of the month, one of the viewers said, hey, why don't you put terrain trays down for the floors of the sewers? And boom, here we are. So basically everything is just, we took these 4x8 terrain trays and put sewer pieces right on them. That becomes the floor. It becomes this cool, vibrant graphic. It's a really neat look. It's really fast. It's really easy. And it also makes your areas easy to move around if you need to. So whenever I can, I build on terrain trays. I also did the same over there, just terrain trays under the bank spaces. So next, this little nook in the back is just made using a straight wall and a couple of our cavern's passage walls. You can do the same gag with dungeon walls. What's neat about it also, besides making a nice little tiny room, is you can use it to terminate if you're building with our passage pieces, you can use it to end a passage run. Right? It's a good dead end alternative if you want. So back here, the end of this sewer tunnel, I ran out of corners, right? Ideally, I wanted to use the inside curve and do this, pair this, but I ran out of these pieces. So I just took a pair of 1x1s and flipped them backwards, put them flat against these walls, and slid this wall up a little bit to terminate this run without having to use those corners. And then I had one extra 1x1, I put it in the back just for decorative to kind of fill it out. But simple way, if you run out of concave corners, you can just flip around your 1x1s in a lot of cases and use those. Next, let's look at this section over here. So we're using this corner entrance piece to throw this whole section of the build off to 45-degree angle. Right? It helps make anything feel really organic, right? Particular caverns. If you cock everything off to a 45-degree angle, it helps things feel less boxy. So this area, instead of this lining up perfectly back on the grid, it's now at 45, so it feels more curvy and natural. It might drive some people crazy because the squares suddenly turn 45 degrees and now your grid is going this way, but you should be able to make it work at your table. So I really like doing it in caverns builds, going off to 45 and then back 45 onto the 90 again and whatnot. Also, what it's really good for is this thing terminates in passage width here. So it's the same width as one floor with walls on the outside of the floor. It means it doesn't line up with, if you're trying to build with regular walls, it doesn't line up wonderfully with your regular walls because they're too far out. However, if you take a wall and a swell piece, that gets you to the perfect width to line up with it. So in this case, we're using the swell and the concave, and that lines this up really nicely. So then we're back just building like regular, all lined up with it. Really nice. So it gives it a really good, good organic feel. Lots of good uses for this piece. You can also, if you have a freestanding, one of the insert walls, you can pop that in here and seal this off and just use it as a corner too. Maybe I should get one of those walls to illustrate. Hold for 30 seconds. Time. You can also use this piece if you have an insert wall. You can use an insert wall and then it just turns it into a regular corner. Or you could throw in your secret door. Whoop. Yeah, lots of uses, this little corner piece. Our final little tip is in this back corner here. So this is a fun little trick I like to do. So you take our rising walls, which are great. You can use them as an alternate for straight or whatnot, or changing elevation. If you want to do like rising elevation like this. In this case, I just want to do a cool little elevated corner. So I put these guys down, throw any regular floor down, and you can put any corner up there and you have like a neat little raised area. It's good if you want to put like an interesting MacGuffin, right? In this case, we put the table and the alembic in there so you can kind of see it more. And that's it. I hope these tips inspire your next build. And that was the Seacave of Secrets, a real sight for sure eyes. And you Stalag might want to tune in next month to find out the fate of Rabbit Burner. All 8 of these sets are currently available on our website as a bundle with a bonus gift card, but only for the month of March. We also have a build guide showing you how to create this as a free download on our website. And if you want to help us build our next one, tune in to the building of the Build of the Month on our Twitch channel. Be sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss out on this or any of the other quality content from us at Dwarven Forge. I hope this inspires you, and with that, it's back to the anvil.